Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
SpongeBob SquarePants. It's the show we all know and love. The 1999 cartoon, created by Stephen Hillenberg, has not only grown into a world-renowned pop culture phenomenon, but has united people of all ages with its tales of nautical nonsense.
And fries, either way. But this grill is not a home. This is not the stove I know.
Since its inception, SpongeBob has found a way into our hearts as an iconic beacon of hope in the early 2000s. People flocked to conventions, stores, parades, and even musical theater just to see more of their favorite Sponge. The show had grown so big that in 2011, a newly discovered fungus was named SpongeBob SquarePants in reference to the show's titular character. While the SpongeBob brand name was gaining traction over the course of the show's 18-year history, something was happening to the SpongeBob SquarePants we know and love. Fans were able to identify noticeable negative changes in several aspects of the show, and they were outraged.
SpongeBob betrayed us!
I'm sorry I ever started this stupid fan club in the first place. I'm gonna get rid of all my SpongeBob stuff. All of it. All of it. All of it.
No matter what changes its broadcasting company, Viacom, or its primary media network, Nickelodeon, made in the newer seasons, nothing would leave the fans of the old show satisfied.
Here he is.
That ain't SpongeBob! SpongeBob is square!
I'm ready.
No, you ain't!
I found Square, Bob.
That's just a cereal box. Besides, he's yellow.
Yeah, here he is. Hey, can I go home now?
Our team of experts set out to answer some questions that the average viewer might have. Where did the show go wrong? What qualities of SpongeBob make it good? What's so different about it now? Is it worth saving?
Why am I asking you all these questions?
Part 1. The Survey. Since the show's creation, SpongeBob has been a huge source of profit for Nickelodeon, and the company quickly made the decision to allocate most of its daytime television spots to SpongeBob episodes in the late 2000s. However, as the years went on, SpongeBob's ratings gradually dropped from season 4 onward. According to a report from the Nielsen Media Research in 2012, the average number of viewers aged 2 to 11 watching SpongeBob at any given time drops 29% in the first quarter from a year earlier. This, however, led to a large drop in ratings for Nickelodeon as well.
Your party has a shocky thing in it.
Wall Street Journal writer John Janarone attributes the decline in ratings to an oversaturation of SpongeBob episodes per day on Nickelodeon, while media analyst Todd Dwenger says that the availability of streaming services like Netflix has attracted many of the viewers who used to watch traditional television channels. Even after Nickelodeon cut back the number of episodes aired per day by 16% in 2012, and the Viacom CEO concluded that the limited amount of Nickelodeon content on Netflix was not the main problem, ratings continued to drop into the latter half of the decade.
So this is the thanks I get for working overtime.
Overtime!
Now, why is all of this important? It's because this leaves only one reason for modern SpongeBob ratings to sink so low: the quality of the show itself. We asked a few of our peers about their opinions of SpongeBob since the major shift in production took place after the first SpongeBob movie in 2004. We surveyed two distinct age groups, seniors and freshmen.
I had 4 biscuits and I ate 1. Then I only had 3.
Among the 66 senior responses, over 90% have watched the show at least once. A little more than half either said the show has gotten significantly worse since 2004, or gotten worse with a handful of good episodes mixed in. 9% said it had gotten better, 13% said it stayed the same, and about 20% have not seen the newer episodes. When 31 seniors responded to how they might improve the new episodes, 10 said the jokes fell flat, 14 said the writing and creativity became lazy, 3 said the characters had changed too drastically, and 4 just got right to the point. Out of the 10 seniors who were asked if the new show had any redeeming qualities, 2 said that the writing improved, 3 said that the art style was more impressive, and 5 just gave up. Among the 72 freshman responses, nearly 95% have watched the show at least once, with a large increase in the I only watched it on occasion category. The opinions of the quality of the show since 2004 were surprisingly evenly divided, with 37.5 believing it had gotten worse, 34.7 saying it had gotten better, and 27.8 either not having seen the show or not noticing a change. When 31 freshmen responded to how they might improve the show, 6 said the jokes lacked their old humor, 6 said the creativity of the plot wasn't what it used to be, 3 said the characters lost their touch, 3 more said the old style of the animation was better, 3 didn't notice a change, 3 said to end the show, and 7 were just freshmen being themselves. No stupid jokes, Nickelodeon. Out of the 29 respondents to the question of why the show had gotten better, an overwhelming 17 said that the art style greatly improved. 3 thought the jokes or plotlines got better, and 9 just... yeah. So what does this all mean? Well, all of these criticisms can be grouped into 4 categories: writing/creativity, jokes, character development, and animation. Each of them can be broken down into detail to see what went wrong.
Part 2. The Breakdown.
Part 2! Part 2, part 2, part 2, part...
Writing/creativity. Stephen Hillenberg is the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants. The idea for the show was conceived during his time as a marine biologist because he wanted to transform ordinary sea creatures into unique comedic characters to entertain children. Through this, he created the character of SpongeBoy in a comic strip, whom he later renamed SpongeBob. Hillenberg's passion for marine life and the creativity that stemmed from it is widely considered one of the main reasons why the show is so great. It was his show. His original plan was to end the show after the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. However, the show aired new episodes with new writers after the movie was released and continued to for many years without Hillenberg on the team. This was the beginning of SpongeBob's creative downfall. The problem was, some of these new writers had worked on shows with humor styles vastly different than the traditional SpongeBob episodes from seasons 1 through 3. Vincent Waller was a writer and storyboarder on SpongeBob from 2005 to 2015. He had previously worked on the show Ren and Stimpy, another Nickelodeon show that drew its humor from grotesque close-ups and gross-out gags. After 2006, Nate Cash and Sean Sharmatz became the main writers. Cash worked on Adventure Time and The Misadventures of Flapjack, both of which were known for the same offbeat humor style and dramatic close-ups. Sharmatz departed from the team in 2012 to work at DreamWorks. Given these new changes, the shift in the tone of the jokes and creativity was very obvious after the first 3 seasons. 22-year-old viewer Andrew Homiak compares the old episodes of SpongeBob to other 90s cartoons during his childhood and explains how its optimism contributed to its success.
I think Rocco's had just like a different style, like all the lines were thinner and it was a little bit more, I think, cynical.
Mm-hmm. And did you appreciate that more, or?
No, I don't think. I think that's kind of what contributed to its downfall. Like, cartoons, especially kids' cartoons, are like, they're bright and fun, and, you know, they're supposed to show you the idealism of things. And I think in the 90s it was cool to be cynical. You know, it was more like we don't need the man or whatever. It's going to be the year 1999. That means the future's going to happen. Oh, 9/11. You know what? We need a little bit of sunshine.
Andrew also told us about how these plots unfolded in an unexpected way with creative twists, rather than falling into using old cliché plot points to move the story along. One instance he provided was how the camping episode defied all expected clichés of traditional cartoon camping episodes, like the characters getting lost. Instead, the protagonist pitches a tent in front of his front yard and gets a little too enthusiastic about his original campfire song. SpongeBob's new writing has been known to lose this originality and grow uninspired. They have released episodes that only exist for a gimmick, and often rehash the same basic plots used in earlier episodes. For example, In the episode Goo Goo Gas, all the characters turn into babies. This concept is not only a cliche in cartoons, but is repeated in the later episode Squid Baby, which, in turn, borrows the babysitting plotline from the Season 3 episode Rockabye Bivalve. The creative team seems to be often lacking in new creative ideas when they bring back old characters, like in Bubble Buddy Returns. This is especially problematic given the show's non-sequential nature, meaning that everything in the cartoon universe resets after the events of any particular episode take place. This unique characteristic to the show's writing has worked to its benefit, as well to its detriment. If the creators have an original yet nonsensical idea, they aren't bounded by any laws of continuity, and can easily execute it for occasional one-off episodes filled with hypothetical situations. However, unlike shows with a definitive overarching storyline, SpongeBob has no indication of a beginning or ending. Take Gravity Falls, for example. The highly successful Disney Channel show was ended after 2 seasons because the major story arc felt complete to the creator at that point, and any additional episodes would feel forced and unnatural. Because SpongeBob has no end goal, his undersea cartoon universe will perpetually reset after every episode, as long as the show keeps making money. Another small and seemingly insignificant issue is that of the endings of the episodes. In the older episodes, the story would end with some kind of concluding joke or one-liner.
If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights? Nosferatu!
Many of the newer ones lack this and instead have a very awkward ending.
Ah! Big jewels! SpongeBob, the entire collection of precious jewels is gone! Have you seen it?
Of course. Pearl's wearing it to the Bikini Bottom High School dance.
Help! Police! Thief! Stop that wail!
I promised Mr. Krabs I wouldn't let him down, and I have partially fulfilled that promise.
During the production of the 2014 film Sponge Out of Water, Hillenberg returned to the writing staff to supervise the creative process, which was a huge help to the movie's success. Afterwards, the creator decided to stay on the writing staff for part of Season 9 and all of Season 10, and the writing improvements greatly benefited the show's ratings almost immediately. The show had made a recovery, but still had a long way to go before reaching the quality of the older episodes in the eyes of the fans.
Jokes. SpongeBob SquarePants has always been praised for the humor infused within the episodes. Something about the comedic timing of jokes allowed viewers of all ages to share and laugh about some of the best quotes. It lived up to its claim of featuring nautical nonsense, situations that were too absurd for our reality, but without breaking the laws of all logic. This standout humor style was appealing to many, but repulsive to a few.
SpongeBob is childish garbage.
We sat down with Michael Soa, someone who likes his humor based in facts and reality.
I guess if I had to pick like a favorite comedic type, it'd probably be like comedy that's based on things that are happening in our world today, like either political or just world issues. You know, not jokes that are like trying to, you know, be sensitive towards certain topics.
He describes how shows featuring normal humans given abnormal gifts were the most intriguing to him.
But Avatar: The Last Airbender, Fairly Odd Parents, cartoons like that, I was a fan of because I thought they were a lot more creative and unique, like Avatar with, you know, all the different powers that they had. And then Fairly Odd Parents, of course, because it was just like so imaginative. That was kind of inspiring.
All right. And then, were there any specific characters that you saw in SpongeBob that you were like, that you saw and you were like, absolutely no, like this is terrible, why would they put this character in here? Or
I'm just gonna say SpongeBob himself.
Who put you on the planet?
Everything from, you know, the laugh to the way he acted just turned me off.
This explains why his favorite character is Sandy Cheeks, the most intelligent and level-headed of all the SpongeBob characters.
It's just a squirrel undersea, chilling in her little bubble she kept to herself.
Perhaps the writers of the show heard critics share similar opinions about the realism of the show, because as the show progressed, fans definitely lost that sense of nautical nonsense. It became more realistic in all the wrong ways. SpongeBob began as a light-hearted, whimsical cartoon that wasn't afraid of defying logical situations for the purpose of humor. When a viewer watches a cartoon with this whimsical atmosphere, typically he expects to witness non-realistic situations unravel, especially in the pain and suffering category. What this means is that when someone gets hurt or feels pain in some way in a comedic show, it should be in a way that the audience would not directly connect with, or a pain that they would actually experience in real life. However, the newer episodes seem to contrast this rule when it comes to their style of humor. For example, in the Season 8 episode, Are You Happy Now?, Squidward experiences what seems to be a severe form of clinical depression. As the YouTube critic, the mysterious Mr. Enter puts it, many of the jokes on SpongeBob work because they are so detached from reality and logic. You can't do that with a major plot point, or else it becomes a major distraction. It even goes to the point to make 2 visual jokes about suicide. This type of humor leaves the younger audience confused and the older audience uncomfortable. Another issue with the physical humor in the non-Hillenberg episodes is the lack of schadenfreude that was present in the older episodes, as well as most slapstick comedies. Schadenfreude is the enjoyment obtained from the troubles of others. Schadenfreude only works in comedy when the one in trouble is portrayed as immoral or unlikable. For example, in the Season 3 episode, the camping episode, SpongeBob and Patrick go camping outside their houses, and during their night, they are very careful to not attract the dastardly monster, the sea bear. Squidward comes out and is not as careful. In fact, he goes as far as to do all the things that supposedly attract a sea bear just to taunt SpongeBob and Patrick. This eventually causes a sea bear to show up and maul Squidward. Not only do the savage maulings happen off-screen as to make the episode not as grotesque, but also Squidward deserved the beating. It is funny to see this happen to Squidward because he is made to be unlikable and immoral in the episode. Therefore, the attack was simply retribution for his distasteful actions. It gives the viewer a certain sense of justice. On the other hand, in the newer episodes, characters that are not made out to be immoral or unlikable receive punishment that rivals or even is worse than that of the antagonist in the older episodes. An example of this is the episode One Course Meal. In this episode, Plankton makes yet another attempt at stealing the secret Krabby Patty formula. During this attempt, Mr. Krabs discovers that Plankton is afraid of whales. Mr. Krabs uses this newly discovered fear to torment Plankton to the point where he tries to commit suicide by lying in the street and waiting for a bus to run him over. Meanwhile, Krabs feels no empathy. This just makes the viewer despise Mr. Krabs, who is supposedly the protagonist. Here we see that the unwarranted psychological terrorism performed on any character is not funny, unlike the usual slapstick humor that occurs. The old slapstick used to be much like that of the Stooges with the wordplay of the Marx Brothers, but even with more capabilities because of the limitlessness of animation. Random gags were also present more often in the older episodes.
Well, this is the end.
No, it's not, Squidward.
It's not?
The concept of random gags has been present in cartoons since the days with Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner. While the verbal jokes always used to be put in the perfect spot,
Well, what are you waiting for? Can't you see I don't watch anymore? Just get out of here, you stupid, dumb animal!
they seem to have lost their comedic timing.
Howdy, SpongeBob. I'm so glad you could stick around.
Another fan-favorite concept that was mainly used in the older episodes with Hillenberg, but was also reintroduced when he came back, is the usage of stock footage, as shown here.
There you are, you stinking bilge rats! Stop playing that music! Stop it, please!
And all that running is good for your buns and thighs, right?
Yeah, buns and ties.
By the powers of naughtiness, I command this particular drop of hot sauce to be really, really hot.
Lastly, the newer episodes have lacked an appeal to a more mature audience. In the older episodes, there always used to be adult jokes or innuendos that would go right over the heads of children watching, yet keep the parents and older viewers entertained.
Look, the balloons! Don't drop them.
We got the advice of Mrs. Joni Frederick on what parents might also appreciate in SpongeBob. Joni has been a fan of the show since the beginning, and adored watching it with her 3 kids as they grew up with it. Joni additionally mentioned that a necessary ingredient in fixing the newer episodes is shifting their focus from the negative qualities of the characters to more positive ones. This leads us to our next topic. That's 2 categories down, 2 categories to go.
I'm already halfway there! Halfway there! Halfway there! Halfway there!
Characters. Joni elaborated on this point, saying she would rather see SpongeBob and Patrick demonstrate dedication to a job and cleverness, respectively. Episodes like Help Wanted and Secret Box show the audience the best traits of these characters, instead of subjecting them to too much of SpongeBob's annoyance or Patrick's stupidity. Generally, as the show progressed, the characters themselves changed many times, again and again. In the first 2 seasons, there were songs put into certain episodes to help develop the characters and the storyline. A notable example is in the episode Welcome to the Chum Bucket. The song This Girl Is Not a Home shows the strong bond between Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob that isn't always shown in their usual dialogue. Another example of this is the Fun song. In this song, Plankton discovers what it truly means to have fun and enjoy friendship. Most of the newer songs, like many of the Atlantis SquarePants songs, tend to come off as shallow and don't give us anything we don't already know about the characters. Another problem with the character development is that it seems over time that characters lose their sense of morality. For example, SpongeBob obviously had a strong bond with his pet snail Gary. This is evident from the very first episodes. For some reason, this all changed in the almost universally hated episode, A Pal for Gary, which is in fact the lowest rated SpongeBob episode on IMDb. In this episode, SpongeBob gets a new pet. The new pet turns out to be a monster hidden under the guise of a fuzzy little creature. Gary realizes this, as the monster keeps causing problems for him. But SpongeBob remains clueless and blames Gary for everything that goes wrong. The reason that this episode is so despised is because it completely disregards everything that has already been established about the relationship between SpongeBob and his beloved pet Gary. In the newer episodes, SpongeBob cries way too much, to the extent that he seems to have the emotional capacity of a toddler. The perfect example of this is in the episode A Day Without Tears. In this episode, SpongeBob somehow develops the character trait where he basically cries every 10 minutes over something completely ridiculous. The biggest issue as far as characters in SpongeBob can be boiled down to one word, something that fans of all age groups can agree on.
Flanderization.
Flanderization is the act of taking a single, often minor, action or trait of a character within a work and exaggerating it more and more over time until it completely consumes the character. Most always, the trait/action becomes completely outlandish and it becomes their defining characteristic. Essentially, as mentioned, the character becomes a caricature of his or her former self. For example, Mr. Krabs' greed is blown out of proportion over the years. He goes from caring about his daughter, Pearl, and his friends to only caring about money. For many seasons, that is his only defining trait. A similar phenomenon happens with Sandy. Initially, she showed an interest in science in episodes such as Sandy's Rocket, but like Mr. Krabs, that becomes her whole character. In many newer episodes, all she does is talk about science, Texas, or acorns. Perhaps the worst of all is that of SpongeBob's flanderization. He wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed before, but he certainly wasn't completely incapable. After Hillenberg left, he slowly lost any intelligence that he actually had and transformed from being misguided with a childlike innocence to being completely ignorant of how much danger is present or how annoying he's being. Since Patrick was the original bumbling idiot, this change in SpongeBob's character left Patrick to become so stupid that it's often hard for viewers to watch. Longtime viewer Jenna Mosey comments about how the new episodes tried to develop these characters with hobbies and interests, but these attempts came off as sounding dry and unoriginal.
In the earlier seasons, the characters were pretty consistent, but as the seasons went on and they ran out of like little simple plot lines to do, they kind of tried to develop the characters more than they probably should have, and they said Plankton was what I remember is Plankton used to be in a band, and they just would build off these weird backstories that didn't make sense to the characters, because it's supposed to be such a simple show, and now you're developing these characters and making them even more two-dimensional, but in a bland way.
Her brother, Ryan Mosey, also sees character development as the most important trait of the show. In listing his favorite episodes, he demonstrates how exposure to the newer episodes doesn't sway the affinity of younger fans toward the earlier seasons.
The Survival of the Idiots, the Graveyard Shift, Something Smells, the Camping episode, Chocolate with Nuts, Sandy's Rocket, Rock Bottom, Pizza Delivery, and Krusty Krab training video.
Yeah! Hold it right there, Doodle. I brought you into this world, and now I'm gonna take you out.
Animation and editing. The quality of the animation is considered one of the only redeeming qualities of the show to this day. According to the survey, the majority of viewers appreciate the newer animation for its vibrant colors and improved quality, as opposed to the older, classic look. However, the newer animation style contributes to the over-exaggeration of the characters' traits, like SpongeBob moving more frantically, Squidward always looking disinterested, and Patrick acting more juvenile. One of the other downsides to the newer animation is its contribution to the rushed pacing. This takes away from the show's focus of the joke quality and puts it all on the animation. We get Adam Lemma's word on how the episodes after the first movie displayed a huge change from what fans were used to.
There's a major shift in tone coming, I believe, season 4, which was right after the movie. And it was just the pacing of the first, I remember because they showed like the first 5 episodes in like a week, like one every night. And just the tone of them and the pacing of the jokes was horrible and like off. Like it immediately felt weird. Like everyone was kind of talking really fast. The jokes weren't that funny. They were more situational and like there was no actual, in their dialogue, comedy happening. It was just like, oh, because it's SpongeBob and friends just walking around, they're like, it's supposed to be the show, but it felt wrong.
The new animation is also notorious for the use of grotesque or freaky imagery. In the older episodes, these types of pictures would only be used on occasion. For example, the Season 1 episode, Scaredy Pants, features imagery like this, but it has become a regular quality on the show. Most people say that it just serves as a distraction to the show, and that it should be toned down.
Hey, what do you know? I scared him!
Ow! Okay, it's on my foot.
Okay.
Like for some reason, there's this like gross out humor that came. A lot of this visual gag is really, really weird, and like this background character for this episode, he's got very details for him, which that's not what makes those side characters good. What makes them good is like Monty T. Moneybanks. He's just the world famous art collector. That guy. You remember him, and he's funny because he had a good voice and good jokes.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
Part 3, the conclusion.
Now that we've identified all the major aspects of the cartoon, let's review what we can improve for the ideal episode. Over the show's 18-year history, SpongeBob has made a huge cultural impact within its massive fan base. Both kids and adults were drawn to its unique setting and whimsical atmosphere, allowing them to escape reality for just 11 minutes at a time.
Why must every 11 minutes of my life be filled with misery? Why?
After Hillenberg, the impassioned creator of the show, left the production staff, the new writers couldn't duplicate the same winning formula, which left the episodes feeling unoriginal and empty. The plots became cliché without his direction, and this was reflected in the viewer ratings. After his return, the ratings began to rise again due to fan confidence in Hillenberg's work.
The jokes of the older episodes were filled with nonsensical yet enjoyable humor, including a few adult jokes, stock footage clips, and random sight gags. The newer episodes lose the comedic timing in the dialogue in exchange for grotesque situational imagery. The unique characters that were beloved by the fanbase soon became caricatures of their former selves through flanderization.
Part of what contributed to these problems was the new animation style, which was improved in quality through new technology, but rushed the pacing of jokes and helped distort the personalities of the characters. The ideal episode, therefore, would take all of these positive qualities of seasons 1 through 3 and the picture quality of animation style from seasons 9 and 10, Hopefully the solution will bring out the best in the future of SpongeBob and bring the show back to the forefront of quality cartoons. We gotta get SpongeBob back.